All right, everyone. Morrissey is fairly well liked among basically what amounts to the new counterculture, which is people who aren't part of the far left. He's not apparently a fan of like the globalism, multiculturalism sort of stuff, and he's not hateful or particularly out there, but he seems edgy to a lot of the like the pink hat wearing people because he doesn't 100% coincide with the views of like I guess liberal Democrats or something like that. So he comes out when he was talking to the media. And there were several stories on this. He's referencing Tommy Robinson, and he's like, basically, it's disgraceful how he was treated. It's fucking ridiculous. And if you read this article, archived, link in the description, archived, of course. They're not getting any clickbait revenue from this one. If you look at this, it's like, the captions are like, in a bizarre rant, Morrissey said that he doesn't understand why Tommy Robinson is in prison. In a bizarre, and then it goes on to be like, oh, well, he almost fucked the trial, and like, the Smiths' former frontman, basically this washed up rock star that we don't like because he has the wrong think views. It's all very funny if you read, and this is the sort of bullshit that the media pulls. Again, it's basically the entire article is basically just attacking the dude for having an opinion that happens to be different from the lamestream. And this happens over and over. It happens to the alt media all the time. So Morrissey, who technically speaking, he's basically from the 80s era. All things considered, that's basically the era you think of the Smiths. It's the 1980s. He's actually peaking again decades and decades later, finding out that he's more relevant, arguably now, in the social sense, more relevant now than back then, simply because of the paradigm shift. So he's going to make money because they're mentioning him, so he probably went home and chuckled, which he probably should. He's one of the few people within the realm of rock that didn't sell out. He's still edgy. He's still sort of out there, represents a younger view, honestly. You got to remember, it's like if you look back at the 60s, the countercultural movement then, the anti-war movement in particular, a lot of times you think of it as being basically a bunch of young hippies versus the older, the square establishment. That's actually not true. Support for the Vietnam War was highest among the younger population and less popular among older people who remembered sort of maybe the World War II era. So the older people were the ones that weren't for the war. But you get a skewed view of that. It's the same thing now. The skewed view that you see if you pay attention to the lamestream media is basically, well, Parkland and Sarkeesian and Dunham, and this is the youth. It represents, a rising social, basically pro-socialist and globalism and, inclusivity, whatever the fuck that means. And then there's these old has-beens that represent, they think you should own guns, and they're more, they're backwards, basically. They don't believe in tolerance, which is basically the overthrow of the entire Western paradigm of culture. That's actually not true at all. In my experience, people who are younger are far more with it. Like, the more young a person is, it seems the more likely they are to have rejected neoliberalism. It's not necessarily they're like alt-right or a tradcon or something like that, but generally speaking, they're not part of the establishment. The establishment being neolibs and neocons, being the evildoers of our time, it seems like more of them shift to the right than joined like the Bernie Sanders progressive stuff. His sort of movement appears to be dwindling. In fact, it's actually becoming a running joke that his movement, it's dwindling like his remaining stability as he slowly approaches the age where dementia is more and more assured. I love coffee, can you tell? But Morrissey, despite the fact that he probably drinks tea instead of coffee, is still cool. And he's been cool all along. The Smiths were great. His music still is. And by the way, he's one of the few rockers who didn't fuck up his voice as well. I don't know how he accomplished that. But you look at the article, look at what they're saying about him. It's like a bizarre rant. How is it a bizarre rant to call it ridiculous to throw Tommy Robinson in jail for recording outside of a fucking trial? Maybe in the UK that's considered normal. Like over here, if you record outside of a trial, you're not going to get in trouble for it. The police might ask you to, hey, step off to the side so people can walk by, or don't get too close to this witness. Or, okay, maybe, but they're not going to throw you in jail. Not unless you're being an ass. If you're making an ass out of yourself, disrupting things, if you're insulting people, throwing rocks or something, yeah, you can get put in jail. Over here, though, it would be insane. The police would get in trouble if they tried to do what they did in the UK. Now, you may find that normal, but you also have a judge over there who's trying to make it so that they have to literally blunt the tips of knives before selling them to try to curb stabbing attacks. You have a moped mafia rolling around London randomly attacking people and stealing their purses and wallets. You're disarmed. The UK is a former power that's dwindling off and being displaced by, of all places, hysterically enough, India supplanting them economically, a former colony of theirs that they consistently mistreated. Yeah, okay. Yeah, try to tell us how to live our lives. Try to tell us it's perfectly sane. Tommy Robinson almost fucked up the trial. He didn't almost fuck up the fucking trial. No, he didn't. Don't be crazy about stuff like that. That's nonsense. Just sequester the jury. You don't have the capability of sequestering whatever sort of people are involved in your weird so-called justice system over there? And do you have any faith in it anyway? The same media that's parroting, oh, well, they almost, fucked up the trial proceedings by recording outside. No, the trial was emailing like Rotterdam or any of these other things. Rotherham, I think it is. Or any of these other places. Okay, yeah. Justice. Half the time over there, it seems like they give them just probation. The other half of the time, they don't have a trial at all because they don't know what's going on. Or the police cover it up actively because they're terrified. They're practically disarmed too. Most of your police don't have weapons. It's like this was surreal. Some UK resident, they're like, Sticks, you're wrong. Some of our police have guns. Some of them. Okay, well, what about the others? So you've disarmed some of your police. Why do you even have those people out there? What, so they're a glorified crossing guard. They can't even do anything. Look, a criminal is stabbing someone with a knife. They're not going to get involved. The other dude's got a knife. They've got nothing. Meanwhile, the Queen is surrounded by people who have scary assault rifles. By the way, they will actually shoot you if they need to. So they stand back from the Queen's guard and they then stomp and then, aim their gun at you. It's basically fucking back off. And they'll push you out of the way if they're marching through the street and you don't make way for the Queen's Guard. And it's all very surreal and very pomp and barmy or whatever you'd call it over there. It's very funny. No, Morrissey's correct. It is ridiculous what happened to Tommy Robinson. The rest of the world sees that. Fucking people in third world tin horn dictatorships see why that's ridiculous. Meanwhile, people in Britain, some of you've planted your faces in the dirt so far, or up your asses so far, believing your shitty government's dystopian lies, that you don't even see why it's upsetting and why it seems odd to people, especially here in the US. Even places with a muzzled press in parts of the world, I'm bringing this up to people that I know that are literally in third world countries that don't really have press freedom, and they're like, oh, if that happened here, it'd be a little bit of a problem. It's the sort of thing that would happen in Venezuela. Jailing the opposition, essentially, is what it amounts to. Tommy Robinson, if this were a person, again, I tell people this, if this were a case where the trial proceedings were against, some zealot Christian who did something wrong, do you think he would be in jail right now? And if Tommy Robinson were a self-proclaimed liberal Democrat or a communist or something, would he be in jail right now? No. The police might have come and shooed him across the street. The police might have come and maybe harassed him a little bit, taken his phone and smashed it and said, hey, there's an active trial going. They wouldn't have dragged him off to jail. And fuck this probationary argument. Oh, he was on probation on similar things already, so he goofed and he knew it. He shouldn't be in prison. He never should have been charged from the get-go. Oi, mate, you got a license to report? Apparently over there, apparently. I'm not sure how true this is. You have to have like a license to do certain types of reporting or something. It's really, really weird. The UK is total dystopian hellhole. Yeah. Happy little England over there. It's like you get your rainy island. It was once the main empire of the world. You were the world power. And you had a fifth of the world's surface. And everyone feared and respected you, and you were seen as like the master of the world. Now what is the UK? It's a seat at the UN, and not much else. It's really sad. Poor Morrissey, he has to watch as his country gets pissed away even more. It's in decline. You are a nation in decline. That's the only way to put it. Never going to be a power player again. It's all very sad. And Tommy Robinson is just a symptom of why. You have an inept and corrupt government. Yeah, I'm not saying that the U.S. government's not inept and corrupt too, but it's on a different order of magnitude. You know, you need to remove the plank from your own eye before looking at the splinter in ours, and to use the biblical term, I guess. That's about all. Peace out.